A Way Out is a co-op focused, story-heavy game released back in March of this year. It cost less than your average full-price game, but it was just a 6-hour experience. And its creator says that is exactly as long as it should be.
Josef Fares, the director behind this year's co-op prison break game A Way Out, says that 6 hours is the perfect length for his vision of the game. A Way Out launched earlier this year and cost a bit less than your average AAA title here in the UK, and it reviewed quite well, with a 78% on Metacritic on the PS4 and 80% on the PC. But Fares recently told gaming news website VG247 that even with the game's fairly short 6-hour length, only half of PS4 players, around 52%, actually played through to the end. Believe it or not though, that's actually quite high when you consider that just 30% of GTA 4 players got through to the end of that game, for example. Here's what Fares said, quote, "If you look through the statistics of how many people actually play through a game, take a game like A Way Out. I think the playthrough rate on PS4 was around 52%. Imagine someone like James Cameron going, oh, only 50% of the people walked out of the cinema. Wow, that's great. It's insane." Fares says that game design teachers tell their students to focus on the first 40% of the game because the rest probably won't see it. He continued, quote, "Why put all of that effort in for nothing? We should see games as experiences. It doesn't matter how long they are. If it's so common that people don't play through the games, then why should we even comment on replayability and how long they are? Why should that affect score? It shouldn't." When my publisher asked about the game's length, I was like, why are you asking that? I'm not even going to answer that shit. In Josef Fares style, throwing out the expletives there, you know. We all know him from the Game Awards rant, right, where he the Oscars and that, and
yeah. I think he's spot on there, and it is pretty baffling to think of anything else. If you read halfway through a book, you've watched half a TV series, you watch half a movie, people expect you to go through the whole thing, but that's not the same in video games. People will just play half of a campaign, and that's just the way it is. Fares says A Way Out might have been 10 hours long, but only if the dev team could keep introducing new ideas at the same rate. He says making a longer game becomes a challenge if you want to keep the experience diverse, so he consciously settles on whatever feels right rather than artificially inflating it. And that artificial inflation is an industry problem in his eyes. As far as Josef Fares sees it, AAA developers and publishers need to put the current focus on game length and replayability away. Quote, "Sometimes it feels like we're serving a table full of food and people get upset when all the food is not there. They're only going to eat a tiny portion, but the rest has to be there rotten or they get super upset." Fares' previous game, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, was a short indie experience that took about 3 hours to beat on average. It reviewed well with 90% on PC and 86% on Xbox 360. To him, game length is not important, but people constantly ask him the question.
How long's yours? That's always the question you get, isn't it? As a game developer, it's not that important, really, is it?
It's stupid, though. It is stupid. I'm completely with him here. I completely agree with him because I don't like inflated games. I don't like the Assassin's Creed mentality of just make the game bigger equals better reviews. People can play it for longer.
Uncharted 4, where you're climbing and just shooting people random for hours and hours and hours in between, like the occasional bit of story where you actually is quite interesting. But yeah, it's the same for me. Like I get really bored with games that you do the same thing over and over. Artificially inflation.
It's not so much the replayability type thing as well. When you look, it can be done really well in my eyes in terms of like Bloodborne and Dark Souls and stuff. When there's just stuff there because the game needs to be 40 hours long or the game needs to be 25 hours long, or we've just made the city of Chicago or whatever in Watch Dogs. We've got to fill it with anything to get the player to run to it and do it, and that kind of mentality I'm not into. And I think that there's some games that do it really well, where you feel like it's really worthwhile to run over to that marker and do it. Maybe there's not even a marker there, like in Breath of the Wild. You'll just run in a direction and there'll be great things waiting for you, but there's too much focus on like just can you make the game 25 hours long? Well, if not, then we won't make the game.
Yeah, this is on the back of the conversation recently where Green Man Gaming put in the metric on their sales page where they showed you how long the game is. So it gives you a value for money, price per hour type of metric, so you can gauge how much the game is worth in pounds per hour, which we said at the time we don't think it's fair, and this is another argument against that. Again, it doesn't take into account replayability as well. You can replay a game numerous times, and that doesn't factor into the price per hour gauge thing. And what Fares is saying here is, he puts pressure on developers to flesh out the games unnecessarily, where give me a tight experience any day of the week where it's 4 or 5 hours. That would be the rule for me. Fleshing out games, putting in filler.
If you look at something like Alien Isolation, which is just a bit too long, some people say that it's like 15 hours, doesn't need to be that. That's not even what we're talking about. Like, there's games that are like, there's 4 hours of stuff in it that is dragged out over 40 hours. You're basically doing the same thing, but with different text and different motivations, slightly different motivations, and we're just raising numbers. And I'm saying this as someone who plays Destiny, but there are some games that are just too big. They're just too long. I haven't got f***ing time for it. So where do you stand on this? Do you want value for money? Do you want pure hours, raw hours of gameplay over high quality experiences that'll be a bit shorter? Let us know where you stand down in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you happen to enjoy the video. There should be another video right there if you want to watch that, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.